People were going to get pissed off. Geez, that one's going to...
Okay. Right, so I don't have a cheeky intro this week. We're just going to get straight into the first topic. What is on your mind, Jesse Coyle?
The Move podcast. Podcast talking about a podcast. That's what we're going to start on.
We don't have a podcast, but all right, go on.
No, sorry. A show. No, The Move show. It is a show.
Fair enough.
Do you watch The Move?
Part-time listener.
Yeah. Did you see what they got up to last week? Yeah.
Hard to miss.
It was hard to miss, wasn't it? So for those of you that aren't aware, they run a camp in Spain, and they did a show from the camp. And, you know, you got the regular faces, Lance, Hincapie, Johan Brunel. But they also had guest appearance, Jan Ulrich, Brad Wiggins. So all retirees. And then Mark Cavendish made an appearance at the camp and then on the show that they filmed.
Just super quickly, is the camp like you pay do people go to this?
Oh, they pay.
Right, okay.
Yes. So they run this sort of like ride with the celebs camp. I think there was rumors it was above $30,000 to attend this camp. So, you know, it's the people with a lot of money and want to go ride with Lance, which is cool. That they were going on. But yeah, they did this show. And what I'm talking about is that Move episode that was making the rounds. So they're all sitting on this couch. As you can see there, it's pretty cringe, just first off. Like, it's like a high school chat. They're like going on about how many drinks they had last night and like, yeah. So if we can just get over that, what made actually the news, on the Twitter news, is
can
why?
I guess?
Yeah.
So my guess would be that there is this sort of, oh, look at all these dopers, quote unquote, not everyone, obviously, sitting down, talking like we're all mates and that it's all one big happy cycling family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And more from the fact that you've got a rider that's currently racing, hanging out with Lance and stuff. Like I'm a fan of the show, and I'm a fan of Lance. I don't really have anything against him. It was quite shocking when I first, because that popped up on my YouTube. I was like, Cav, like, he's been a guest on their show before, but to be hanging, like, it's not a good look, is it? Really?
It brings up a weird one, doesn't it? Because there's like, we're starting to get to this like phase in cycling where the guys of that generation, but for people coming through into the new generation of cycling, they were probably still the idols of those guys when they were growing up, right? It's now getting to a phase of like, do we just pretend that they didn't exist and they weren't the idols of the said modern day cyclist? Or like what the tour did, they just basically went, no, those 6-7 tours never existed. That whole generation never existed. Or do we go the other way and just do what's going on here and just embrace it? So my question to you then, right? So let's replace Mark Cavendish in that sit down. Let's say it's Jai Hindley.
Mm-hmm.
Does Jai Hindley get a backlash from sitting there and being there? Like,
I don't think he necessarily should, because like genuinely it seems like they're a really good bunch of mates and they're there for genuine reasons. But as a rider, even if I was mates with Lance, I would not go on there and appeared to be associating with him. Just don't go near it.
Yeah.
Do it. Wiggins fine after you retire, and it's like, you know, these are actually good guys. Let's just build a bridge and, you know, and go on. But as a current rider, it's a bit deaf to the crowd, isn't it?
There's so many different ways to look at this, Jesse.
What do you reckon?
Well, because like there's so many former dopers that are running teams.
Yeah.
Like running teams are still in the sport. Some of them are still in administration. Some of them run races in this country. Like in terms of the look of that actual podcast, like I think it's pretty damn cynical. Like they could have easily just had that piss up and catch up off camera. Like it didn't have to be, here we are all sitting down and talking about old times, you know?
Well, the one that always still gets me is like, but there are some people that just get a free pass. Contador, absolute free pass. He's a commentator when the Tour de France is on one of the motorbikes, and he served a doping ban for clenbuterol, I think he took. among whatever else allegedly. So it seems like there's a bit of, some riders get a free pass, others don't. But yeah, just in terms of that show, it was, I agree. It's like I liked them all and I enjoy watching it, but I was also at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I'd have the balls to do that.
Is Cav getting a bit of backlash for it?
Not anything serious.
No.
There was, it raised eyebrows and people were a bit like, this is not the best look, but no, it wasn't sort of, no one, hasn't blown up or anything.
Yeah. It kind of seems like a bit out of character necessarily with Cav. Like, that's not his brand. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, even if you're like his, I don't know, agent or something, I just don't think he needs that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like Brunel needs that scene because he's got nothing else.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is like Lance at the moment with the move, and he runs a venture capital, Next Ventures. Like he's got his little bubble, and he's in there, and he's doing the shows, and like he's made, like he's really successful doing what he's doing. But he doesn't need to go back into the mainstream cycling bubble. He's got it working. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he should just. Maybe Cav wanted to go on, so that's his choice. But I would sort of say, like, Lance is fine doing what he's doing. He doesn't need to go and try and get back into the mainstream of it. Well, I could say mainstream in quotation marks there, but it's a bit of an odd one.
Question without notice: what third guest would we have on this show? Who would be like the third person, most controversial figure in cycling you would like to sit down and have on here? I know who mine would be.
Oh, the most controversial in like the space that we're in would be like a Hambini or like someone controversial in the pop culture YouTube space. I think that would be interesting.
Okay.
In the circles that we're doing the show
good
for.
Call. Yeah, good call. I was thinking pro Peloton.
Okay.
I'd love to just hit Valverde with questions. He probably would just avoid all of them. But
see, that's interesting because I would rather hit Hambini with questions than Valverde. Okay. Honestly, that's just what I find more interesting.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough. All right, guys, let us know your thoughts. The move, was it a good look for Cav? Yeah, I don't know.
Jonas Vingegaard is back.
Wow.
Good to see him. Since I've been watching the tour, I haven't seen a disappearing act like that after. He was
Lance used to, but,
off the face of the earth. That was pretty crazy because they finished the tour. He went back to Copenhagen, I think it was. The jets were flying. He was like a god. And then poof, gone. Didn't see him. And you're kind of like, people were speculating, did he have like maybe a bit of depression or was he struggling? Was he even riding? What was he doing? Because you literally didn't hear anything about him for a good, what was it, like 2 months or something, 3 months. So it was a little bit worrying. And then he popped up in Croatia doing the Crow race, I think it's called. And he won a stage. I think he might have won it overall, actually.
I think he potentially has.
Yeah. So I remember just seeing that stage he won. It was just good to see him back. Because it was almost getting a bit sad there. You're like, this guy's gone from the top of the world and disappeared.
But wasn't that kind of like, that was the thing people did? And like, it's only a recent thing that guys have raced the tour and like stayed on their A game. Like Pog and those kind of guys almost changed that scene because, look, back in the Lance days, even when Cadell was winning, like, you weren't seen for the rest. I don't think those guys even did world champs after that. So it's...
Yeah, they were pretty cooked, weren't they? But I cannot even from a racing point of view, what the guys do now is another world. But even just to be seen or didn't even know what he was doing. Like, is this guy okay?
Can we talk about Gravel World Champs?
Oh, Gravel World Champs. Yes, we do have more to talk about. That
gravel.
popped up. It popped up today because Mathieu van der Poel, it's his first race since the incident, which we won't mention. It's this Sunday.
What hotel is he staying in? Sorry.
Come on. So he's racing it. But it popped up. I didn't really take much notice of it until he said he entered it. But it's in Italy. The Gravel World Champs is in Italy. And I was like, this is classic UCI, in my opinion. It's like, let's take something that's already good and working in the United States and just try and Eurify it and stick it in Italy. It's a bit like you've already got the Gravel World Champs. It's called Unbound.
Yeah.
Like, it's just something about it just annoyed me when I saw it was in Italy.
I hear what you're saying. I totally hear what you're saying. But it clearly is a cynical push to try and get the World Tour teams to send riders. I mean, they're not going to send riders to the US. They didn't want to send riders here. We went through all the reasons last week. So it's clearly a cynical push to get some big names to go and do it. And because it's an easy one for them to logistically go and do and build it that way and get that UCI gravel brand big.
Is that good for it or bad for it? So is it good that it's in Europe and that it's getting some big name road riders to it? Or is that bad because it's ruining what was already big in the US? And if riders want to go and do that, they should make the effort to go over to the US and do it and fit in with that system. Because like the only reason we're talking about it is because Van der Poel's going to it. So I guess that's a good thing?
Well, no. I would definitely, push back and say, no, it's a bad thing because we know what happens when the UCI takes sort of the hold of stuff. This was what is hopefully still pretty cool about, well, look, I don't know. This was always going to happen. Like, let's not joke about this. It was always going to happen. The UCI were always going to try and get their little grubby hands on it because they can see how big it is in the US. And it is sad because you're now going to see, you're going to see the skin suits. You're going to see the marginal gains all coming into play in gravel. And
I don't know about that.
No?
Gravel's, the gravel guys in the US would be miles ahead of what some road pro is going to bring across. 100%. Okay. They're like fully into it. So I think the UCI would bring other detrimental.
Do you know what's the format of the gravel race? Is it like a 3 or 4 hour race or is it like an unbound?
I didn't have enough interest to actually look at it. I just saw it was in there. I'm like, oh God, here we go.
Don't get that insight anywhere else.
But do you reckon it would have? But that's the other thing is like it's the only pro that made headlines about going is Van der Poel, but that would have been from Canyon pushing him, right? It wouldn't 100%. Have been Alpecin wouldn't give two shits, but 100% would have been Canyon forcing him pretty much to go as part of his contract.
Well, forcing him by paying him
to go. Yeah.
It's interesting because like I was listening to one of those things the other week and current World Tour professional was being asked about what did the World Tour pros, what did the bubble think of guys going to gravel? Like, is it like, this reference will mean nothing to you, but is it like a European soccer player who plays for like Barcelona or something getting their retirement contract and going and playing for New York Liberty or some sort of like Australian foot soccer team where it's clearly just like a retirement fund. It's not a league that matters. And that was kind of how the guys going to like Ted King, you can probably name them like the Aussie guy. Yeah, Stettner. And those sort of lads going to gravel was seen by the other pros as like, they're on their way out.
Did you hear that? That was on a TrainerRoad podcast episode.
Maybe that's where it was.
Because they were chatting to Matteo Jorgensen. Yeah. And it was kind of funny when they asked him, they were like, what do current road pros think of gravel? And he's like, they don't talk about, it was almost, even the question was like funny because it's like, they don't care about gravel. He almost was, he didn't say it, but you could tell he was like, we never talk about gravel. But obviously like to the TrainerRoad guys, because they're in the US, they think it's, everyone thinks about gravel, but like really, unless you're in the US, no one really cares.
Yeah. I wanted to say that thing about the World Champs preview.
What about it?
Oh my God.
Oh, they did a World Champs preview.
They did a World Champs preview.
What was it? Oh no, because they were speaking about Keegan Swinson and how he's... What did they say?
Okay, yeah, so they did it...
how did he go? Should we look up the results?
Yeah, go.
You chat about it and I'll look up the results.
I don't want to make these sort of chats just us bashing other
but it's funny.
It's kind of funny, right? This is funny. So I was doing a turbo session and I was listening to the TrainerRoad podcast and they were doing a preview of the World Champs Road Race, right? And their preview of it was this guy. I don't really listen to much of the podcast, but there's this guy that they coach, I think, Keegan something, and he was doing the race. And he'd never done a World Tour race ever. And they were talking as if he was in the final selection. God, I hope he didn't make it. The final selection with Alaphilippe. And it was like he's going to attack away from Alaphilippe after 250 Ks and drop him. And they're going to let him go because they weren't too sure who this guy was. Now, please tell me
he got 73rd.
All right.
He's 6.5 minutes back.
Okay.
He's there with the Argentinians and the Polish.
Look, nothing against the guy, etc. It just was a really funny preview because it was like they were sort of washing over, Van der Poel, Alaphilippe, Remco, all these professional World Tour cyclists, and they were just going to let this guy ride off.
He's very fit and he's very good on the mountain bike. He's very good on gravel. But yes, it was very kind of like, guys don't really understand road cycling.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's what. Anyway, so you were correct because they were miles off.
Thank God.
Really.
Yeah, that would have not been in the final show if that had if he'd like. Oh, actually, he dropped Alaphilippe up the final time of the climb. Look, as far as race previews go, just listen to Lance and Rouge. Don't listen to.
There's a reason why we cautiously touch on the topics and don't really go into any detail.
Yeah. Cool. What were we talking? So gravel, yeah. So let us know your thoughts. Has the UCI made gravel uncool by swapping it off and taking it into Italy? Let us know. So I want to have this chat with you. I potentially might get myself in trouble with me, but just hear me out, okay? So I've had a few people, obviously, they reach out and ask me about what kind of bike they should get, blah, blah, blah. They're tossing up this and that and this and that. And on a few occasions, I've had the person come back to me, quite a few occasions, had the person come back to me and say, oh, the bike shop the bike shop most times, that they want them on this brand because it's going to increase sales. And they're doing it under the proviso, right, that they're giving them a discount. I feel that like the shop is almost like making up this story, this like pretend, like building up the ego of the guy or girl that, they're this person. But at the end of the day, it's like just this sales technique. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I'm quite cynical about it too, and it's also the person that like puts a story up on Instagram and tags 10 different brands, but it's like you just paid retail for that. Like I don't know. I feel bad. I kind of feel bad because I'm like, if you're just a fan of Specialized, cool, post your bike and tag him in it. Like, I really feel bad, like, saying, like, ragging on him. But for me, it crosses a line where it's like you're going from being a fan to, like, you feel like you are getting something from them and you're, like, indebted to them to post.
Yeah, but
like,
I don't think it's the person. I don't think it's the person, like, doing the tagging and stuff. Like, they've been sold this dream, essentially, by the bike shop, really. Like,
do they do it on? They must do it.
Giant,
bike shops do it on
Giant in this country are notorious for it. Like, especially in Melbourne, they're like, oh no, we want you on a new one. And we're like the guy's got like 25 Instagram followers and a private account. And it's like, what's going on here? It just seems like that's the sales angle. Instead of like maybe in the old days, the sales angle was like, I don't know, you're a regular here. We'll just give you a little discount for that. Now it's like,
it's interesting, right? So the tactic, we're saying is sometimes shops are like, let's make this person feel like they're an influencer, even though they're probably just paying retail, so that it really gets a massive buy-in from them. Yeah.
It's a super technique.
It works.
If you think about it.
It's true. It's very sad. Like, that's so scummy. Like, That sucks. But I mean, I have to, now I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, yeah, like there's people that are like, that do that.
Even at my sort of Z grade level, like you don't get stuff, like especially in Australia, it's like no one cares. No one really cares. Like you're not moving the needle for anyone. So to then like wind that down to just like Joe Bloggs who just wants to buy a bike, it's like, come on, guys, seriously?
And if you really were like, you might get this as well. Like if they offer a good discount, you're like, yeah, but okay, that might save me $500, but then I'm indebted to like promote this thing. I'm like, it's not worth it. I'd rather just pay the $500 and just be done with it. Like, shit. If you're actually into it, yeah, that's not very nice, is it? Shops shouldn't be doing that. Like, don't. But at the same time, as I was kind of saying, if you're just a fan of I'm all for like, I think it's awesome that people like, you know, with Cervelo, I'll be banging on about. I'm just obsessed with Cervelos, but. Because they're such a unique product, they have fans. So I don't think that's the case. No. But yeah, there's definitely examples where you go, you are not like, you've been swindled.
Yeah, I think like Rafa's a great example. Like, so I know a lot of people tag Rafa in, like they just buy a jersey, right? And they tag Rafa because they're a big fan of the brand. And so, and what would mean a heap to that person is if the brand reposted. That's like the ultimate thing for that fan of the brand. And I think that's super cool. And that's like totally different to what I'm kind of saying.
Yeah, because there's people that would probably, if that person then is saying, oh yeah, I'm an ambassador or they need me in this new jersey, like that, but there are people that do that and they've way down, they've lost the marbles.
Yeah, and I just sort of feel like that the bike shop's doing it not only to sort of do this pretend discount, but doing it because they've brought in a few brands. Like they've brought in like the Giant or whatever it is. So they're obviously going to push that brand on the person, and then to say to the person, you know, Giant wants you on this bike is a great sales technique instead of, you know, oh, the bike's kind of the same as that one and that one, you know?
The beauty of it too is usually that person's then buying the top of the range one because it's like, Giant really want you on this third tier slot machine. It's like, no, it's always the most expensive one.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, let us know your thoughts. Have you been influenced by a bike shop to be an influencer for your 2% discount? Let us know. Righto, next up. Now, if you follow Jesse on Strava, it's a pretty boring life, that's for sure, okay? Now, and he's copping a little bit of shit for it. So, Jesse, do you want to just run people through what's going on here?
It is, yeah. I am copping a bit because I'm doing my base training. Just people love base training, but I'm spending a lot of time in Centennial Park by choice. I want to be there. For those that aren't in Sydney, Centennial Park is a 3-kilometre loop where you've got a whole lane for bikes and a whole lane for cars, and it's kind of the hub of cycling in Sydney. You would say, is people in there riding all the time. So for me at the moment, even if I'm doing a 2, 3, 4 hour ride, I'm choosing to go in there to do my laps. It's what I like to do. And people, it's pissing people off. It really annoys people for some reason. And I thought it just brings up a whole thing around, well, firstly, why I'm doing it, but also riding in general, because I've got, you know, opinions around, I mean, I can go anywhere and I could ride anywhere in Sydney. I'm choosing to go into Centennial Park.
And then once you are in Centennial Park, it is a constant loop, right?
Yep.
There is no stopping.
No stops, no lights, nothing. You're just going around and around in circles, passing people.
What do you love about it? Like, explain that the choice going into a ride in CP instead of choosing to do something else.
Yeah. So people think it's from a training point of view because it's so efficient to go in there. That's not why I'm in there. I can do an efficient ride out heading west, north, south. I can do it. The reason why I go in there is people say it's boring. I find it relaxing, I think is the better term. Like, it's boring if you're like thinking about it, but I go in there, I've got a podcast in, I might meet you in there for a few laps. There's other people, sometimes I pass someone I know and have a chat. But like, it's just, you're in there, you're relaxing, you got your podcast in, maybe some music sometimes, and you're just ticking the laps off. And some of the people that are questioning in it live in like country areas, and I'm like, I would get more bored riding like some back roads of Wagga Wagga. Like,
whoa! Whoa. Okay. Right. So I think this is why we brought this up. Okay. Because essentially what we're getting to the bottom of here is a city versus regional riding experience. And I'll take that a step further. Okay. A busy, not, cycling is always marketed as like, you're out there, you're exploring, you're climbing the Alps, you're doing these amazing rides, freedom, all that kind of stuff. You would probably not really be riding your bike to the level that you are if you lived in one of those environments. You actually genuinely prefer the closed off environment that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
I completely disagree with you. Well, I completely disagree with you from my experience. Like I would not. So my parents, as you guys probably saw in the recent video that I put up, live down south in what is a really good place to ride bikes. Okay?
It's like textbook. This is cycling hills, quiet roads.
This is your take on it, right? That you're just doing the same roads anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, you are right. Like, it's not like I have this sort of maze of roads, like a turn every 3 meters that I can take. I'm essentially doing 5 or 6 of the same loops, just sort of, off the back of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely push back on this and say, look, Centennial Park, brilliant for efforts, quote unquote, because I can go in there, I know what I'm doing, I've got this amount of time at this wattage, and I can sort of, it's all contained in that same sort of environment, right? Okay. But the thing I can't get my head around that you can do is you can go in there for hours, and it's like you switch your brain off, and you're in there. I need action around me, and it's actually where I enjoy riding in Sydney, as opposed to riding in a like regional environment, because I need like the adrenaline of stuff around me. Like I'll do that south ride where I ride down to Stanwell, and it's a 4-hour ride, okay? But it doesn't feel like a 4-hour ride, because like I've got this bit to get through, then I've got that bit to get through, and then I've got to get in this lane to be in that one. And there's always like
segmented up, isn't it?
Segmented up.
Yeah.
And there's always stuff happening around. Oh, I got through those lights. It's like this constant sort of journey for me type thing. I'm not enjoying the surroundings and like, wow, this is incredible, but it passes the time. I cannot for the life of me do a 4-hour bike ride in Centennial Park. I think tried the other day and I got to 3 hours and I was like, wow. And half of that, or 3/4 of that time, is sitting there talking to you.
Other cities I'm interested. It depends on what you want in your riding, and that's kind of what I'm interested in. Is what do people do with their riding? Because in Adelaide, you've got Norton Summit, which is sort of I guess you would say of the hub, and then you've got the spokes going out from there. Melbourne is sort of Beach Road, I guess. But there's some places that don't even have that. I mean, Brisbane, for example, in Australia, doesn't have a central riding location.
People living in metropolitan areas, do you have something similar to Centennial Park, like a Central Park in New York or something like that? And how much do you rely on it? Like, is it your 100% riding? Is it your kind of 40 to 50% riding? Would you just rack it without it? I think that's an interesting one. Like for Sydney people, that's the only place you could actually start riding a bike, really.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it's fucking dangerous.
It'd be difficult, yeah.
All right, let us know your thoughts, guys.
For recovery, do people do ice baths? Is that a cycling thing?
In cycling?
No?
I think so.
No. That's what I don't think too, because I wanted to chat about it a little bit, but then I was like, well, cyclists don't really do, cold plunges or ice baths. It's a big thing in the health space, the Joe Rogan pseudoscience-y health space. They're obsessed with these cold plunges. I don't think that's really reached cycling yet. And obviously in rugby and contact sports, footy players, they're always in the ice baths. But the funny thing is ice baths are actually bad for recovery.
All right.
Right. So if you're a footy player and you're running into blokes and your body is swollen with injuries, then yes, it can be useful because it stops the swelling, especially if you've got to play the next day. Makes you way more mobile in those joints, so it's useful. But for actual recovery, it slows down muscle protein synthesis, which is your muscles rebuilding itself. So if you go for a ride or go to the gym and do an ice bath after, it's hampering your recovery, which is just like every time now I hear, again, like one of these Rogan types banging on about ice baths. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's literally the opposite. It slows down recovery.
So even after a like strength session, a weight session, still no good?
No good.
No good.
No.
Right. Okay.
It's like the key process at which your muscles repair themselves is slowed down by cooling yourself that much. The people that are a fan of cold plunges and ice baths are usually also a fan of saunas and stuff. Sauna's fine. Heat is fine. Doesn't impact recovery. Slow it down. But yeah, just ice baths are not good for.
So is that
recovery.
Different to the like you see the guys after the tour wearing the ice vests and things like that? Is that more about just dropping their core temperature?
Oh yeah, no, that's good. That's very good. That's about cooling down. Yeah, so totally different. That's fine. But yeah, if you are like cryogenically, like those cryo machines, those not good. It's
What about this one? The when I was doing that sauna stuff a few years back now, they were recommending you do the sauna. So you're in the sauna for 30 minutes, and then you go and plunge into the plungy thing, and you jump back into the sauna. Anything going on there?
That's another popular one. By heating yourself beforehand, you're probably reducing the impact that the cold plunge is having on your recovery. But the cold that's not doing anything really. Unless you're a footy player, you're trying to reduce swelling. The cold part of it isn't productive for recovery. So heating yourself up first probably minimizes that degradation you're going to get in your recovery. But yeah, I don't know why you would do that. Yeah.
And from a heat protocol perspective, like to then plunge yourself into cold, are you somewhat removing the benefits of the heat protocol?
You are, because it's reduced amount of time your core body temperature's raised. Yeah. So I don't understand why you do a hot cold for any reason. You're not getting that heat
cool.
It feels good. It feels like you're doing something.
Yeah.
It's like, this is like hot cold, but it's not improving your recovery, and then you're not getting the benefit of the heat acclimation. So you're just nullifying everything.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. So all you Iceland and Finnish people who are in saunas running out into the cold and jumping into the snow, it's probably not good for your recovery. It kind of feels amazing though. I've been asked quite a lot to talk about the state of, well, obviously what has gone on with us in the team, with Australian cycling, and essentially people wanting me to kind of rant and things about the state of that. Personally, I just can't be bothered. Like if that's okay with you guys at this stage, maybe things might come up over the Australian summer that we will comment on. But as far as like sitting down and going through the pitfalls that we found over the last 6 or 7 years, I don't particularly want to do that here, and I think it's relevant to you guys. And also, you know what? I don't think they deserve it. I don't think they deserve the exposure that we'll give them by talking about it. So, yeah. If I know the reason I say that is people have reached out asking about like, we're starting a team in this country or that country. Any advice? Keep those things coming. I'm more than happy to talk to you about that stuff. But yeah, as far as like,
so niche, isn't it? For every one person that asks about the state of domestic cycling, there's 100 people that are just like, could you move on? Like, we don't care. Yep. That's probably why we're not including it.
Pretty much. And like it's not a subject that I think is transferable. Like if it was a generic topic that maybe transfers to like the US scene, European scene, the English scene, Scottish scene, whatever, yeah, we might talk about it. But as far as like, Oz Cycling are committed to this, and it's like, anyway, before you all do go to sleep, I think we shut it up for the day.
Send it there.
Alrighty, thanks guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.